This also Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, John Miller. John is our former senior correspondent. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
This is part of a task I know that you are facing and what you were talking about. This from the New York Times. Anxieties intensified about the inability to prevent mass killings at relatively unprotected places. Speak to that.
Soft targets, that is the term used. That in New York is a clear example of that. We're a city of 8.5 million people with thousands of locations where large numbers of people congregate. So the idea of trying to protect all of that, it's not possible. So this is where the world that John Miller lives in, the idea of intelligence gathering, trying to act before the fact, get them before they are able to take action, is so critical. At the same time, if there were to be an event, you have to be prepared to respond very quickly. So it's a combination of prevention, surveillance, prevention intelligence, prevention visibility of police officers, and capabilities to respond very quickly if you have a situation that's not just a bomb but an active shooter.
But John, you don't have to be smart to kill people. Does it seem that these guys are just smarter than the authorities? Are they more tech savvy than the authorities? What is it?
I have to reflect what the commissioner said, which is when you live in a free society, it is not a place where people are allowed to move around freely, contrary to popular belief. The government isn't listening in on everybody's phone or reading everybody's emails. So
but are they more tech savvy than us? They've got the burner phones. They have encrypted codes.
They're as tech savvy as the average 14-year-old. You got to remember, Gail, these are free apps that you download to your phone that have end-to-end encryption. If I walked in with a court order from a U.S. federal district judge and said, I need everything that went over this between these particular people over Telegram or Wicker, one of these apps, the company would say to us, not only won't we give it to you, but we can't give it to you because we don't have it. They change their own encryption in real time.
How much better is our intelligence here in the U.S. compared to in Belgium, and the coordination with law enforcement? As you know, there's been some criticism of how our counterparts overseas carry this out.
I think this is a giant mistake, a serial mistake, which is when a terrorist attack happens, people in the critic seat, people in the media seats immediately defer from blaming those who deserve blame, the bad guys, and focus on the good guys. We can't have this conversation upside down where we're having companies make applications that are completely impenetrable and Apple phones that are completely warrant-proof, and then have people bandy about words like intelligence failure.
Could an attack that happened in Brussels happen in New York City?
Oh, certainly. It can happen anywhere in the world. That the benefit here, fortunately, is that we put a lot of resources into the intelligence community. John has now over 1,600 people reporting to him. Nowhere else in America is there that degree of concentration of resources, and it's necessary because we are New York.
But so tell us that, because after Charlie Hebdo, after Paris, after Brussels, what are you doing, and what are most American cities doing that they were not doing before?
Well, actually, before all of that occurred, we had already begun, John and I, when we came in, having worked together in Los Angeles, we did the exact same thing in L.A., understood that this threat was going to expand and not decline. That was in the tea leaves. So as soon as we came through the door, and one of the reasons I stole John away from you guys was I needed him to help me start ramping up for what we believed was going to be an expansion of terrorist activity, not a decline. And that's what's going on in America. And that's why it's so ironic that the administration in Washington is proposing cutting aid to American cities at a time when the threat is expanding. Politics this year in America is mind-boggling. Nobody can make any sense of it.
What do you think about Ted Cruz's statement yesterday that we need to empower law enforcement to patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods before they become radicalized?
Doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. That, being quite frank with you, I took great offense at that statement. I have almost 1,000 Muslim officers in the NYPD. Ironically, when he's running around here, we probably have a few Muslim officers guiding him. Many of these people are also combat veterans. A lot of them are active duty service members. And so for him to be denigrating the whole population, there is an element in that population that have become radicalized. And we work very hard to try to identify ways to keep that from happening, because once they become radicalized, it's almost impossible to de-radicalize them.
And Chief, prior to your tenure, there was a system in place here in New York that was looking at Muslims. Did that generate any leads?
No. You're talking about the demographic unit, and so what both he and some of the other candidates are talking about, this idea that we disbanded this critical intelligence gathering operation. Not one single actionable piece of information came out of that.
So you're suggesting it might not even work?
It didn't work. Yeah. It didn't work.
Commissioner Bill Bratton and Deputy Commissioner John Miller.
The man in the tree.